Chris Wedge's 2002 smash hit Ice Age is probably a fixture in the childhood of anyone born from the 90s on. It was probably helped to its box office success by the inclusion of the much-hyped trailer for Attack of the Clones running before it, but it's genuinely fun in its own right, and went on to spawn a multi-billion-dollar franchise that persisted despite lengthy delays between entries. And given its prominence in the childhood of many, it stands to reason that there's something to the film. Stick around, because we're about to figure out exactly what that is. This is Equipment for Living with Ice Age. Alright, get your bearings. Ice Age is about a Pleistocene mammoth called Manny. Manny marches to the beat of his own drum. He goes against the wisdom of the herd, which is to migrate towards the equator during winter. And he's clearly trying to run away from some dark experiences he's had. But before we meet Manny, we are introduced to the tone and world of the film via the misadventures of instant franchise mascot Scrat, an acorn-obsessed scuroid mammal. Scrat's classic cartoon pratfalls punctuate the rest of the film and act as some light distraction along the way. After meeting Scrat, the film introduces us to a veritable menagerie of mammals mishmashed together from a multitude of different times and places. They're all marching south for the oncoming winter, so despite several of the animals depicted hailing from the southern hemisphere, this film must be set in the northern hemisphere, or else the animals are very stupid. Anyway, against this tide of flesh strides Manny. Ice Age immediately sets up Manny's strengths and weaknesses. He's physically imposing, and no other mammal dares mess with him. He's also assertive to the point of stubbornness, and his willful isolation isn't doing his mood any favours. In fact, he grumpily trumpets the film's theme in minute 5.
Oh, go ahead. Follow the crowd. It'll be quieter when you're gone.
Ice Age will be an essay on the pros and cons of group membership as opposed to solitude. Having met Manny, Ice Age proceeds to flesh out its cast. We next meet Sid, the giant ground sloth. Sid's goofy visage and endearing lisp make him absolutely captivating to children, but he also serves as the only humanoid character in the entire cast, and I'm including the actual humans in that judgment. I mean, look at this horror show. What I mean is that Sid is bipedal and has a general facial arrangement that lights up the human parts of our brains. Compare that with Manny, whose face is basically just a pair of eyes. I have immense respect for the artistry of the film's animators in giving Manny as much life and humanity as they did. Coming back to Sid, we are meeting another loner. But this character's solitude is not by choice. Sid is simply obnoxious to be around, so his family migrated without him. Unlike Manny, Sid is desperate for company, and after a run-in with a pair of brontotheriids in which Manny reluctantly protects Sid, Sid sticks to Manny's side, much to Manny's irritation. This is the call to adventure and hits 7.5 minutes, or exactly 10% in. Meeting Sid is what will eventually turn Manny's life upside down. And at first, Manny refuses to truck with Sid. This is the refusal of the call. You see, this is part of the Hegelian dialectic of the film's theme. At one extreme, you have Manny's insistence on going it alone. At the other extreme, you have Sid's insistence on attaching himself to the nearest warm object. Just like with any dialectic, the optimal path lies somewhere in the middle, which is what the film is driving towards. We then meet a third character who adds another dimension to our dialectic, Diego the Macaron feel it. Diego starts the movie embedded in a clear hierarchy of conspecifics, though bafflingly they are all male. Anyway, he belongs to a pride. He is an avid belonger to groups. But his is a tyrannical group, showing us a case in which group living might actually be detrimental. Diego is tasked by the alpha male with stealing a baby from a tribe of humans. Whether these abominations are intended to represent our species or even our genus is debatable. There were over 20 other species of humans. Did you know that? The majority occurred in Africa, where humans evolved. Probably the reason why the oldest cultures on every populated continent on the planet have myths concerning frightening humanoids in the wilderness is that, at some point, they literally encountered such humanoids. The Yowie, the Yeti, Sasquatch, these are the ghosts in our brains of deceased types of humans that we used to meet, and sometimes interbreed with. Europeans share ancestry with Neanderthals. Melanesians, including Indigenous Australians, share ancestry with Denisovans, another extinct human. But the majority of genetic exchanges between species happened within Africa, between us and species for which we have no archaeological record as yet. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh yes, right, a kids movie from 2002. Diego is thwarted in his kidnapping attempt by a symbolic group act, sacrifice. The infant's mother sacrifices herself to protect the treasured offspring. We now have a second pass at our dialectic. On an individual level, we have Manny, who is an inveterate loner, versus Sid, who is obnoxiously clingy. On a group level, we have a strict hierarchy under tyranny, and we have communal altruism, extremes of their respective spectra. Which of these approaches will win out? How do individuals function in groups? These ideas begin to converge around minute 19, when Manny encounters the human baby. With some cajoling from Sid, Manny agrees to look after the baby. For the first time since the movie began, Manny agrees to function as part of a group, part of a herd. This beat, 25% in, is the break into Act 2. The honeymoon begins by forcing all our characters onto the road together. Sid attaches himself to the baby because he is clingy. Diego claims to be able to lead them to the baby's herd because he's manipulative and comes from tyranny. Manny is self-reliant, so he doesn't trust either of the other mammals to transport the cargo safely. These individual motivations cause a new group to arise. Immediately, we see and hear the problems of working as a group. The baby starts crying and expressing odoriferous digestive products. We are 25 minutes or 33.33% in, and the baby is showing itself to be the B character. Through the prism of this gormless infant, our three main characters will all learn and grow and change in precisely the ways they need to. There is a forgettable discussion involving some dodos, but it is interesting how the dodos show us yet another way of thinking about groups. Without good leadership, and when constituted by morons, groups will fail. We get more classic honeymoon material. Remember, this is the part of the story where the pace slows down and the stakes are lower, and we get to enjoy what we came to the cinema to see. In this case, a badly mismatched team of misfits forced to work together. Along the way, Diego is accosted by some other Macarons in his pride. He promises to have the baby at a certain place at a certain time. Shortly afterwards, and against his better judgment, Manny begins really bonding with the infant. This genuine connection with another being signals the beginning of irreversible change in Manny's character. These beats, the second of which hits in minute 37, 50% in, constitute the midpoint. The stakes are raised and a timer is set. Manny connects with the infant and Diego starts herding them to their doom. And then things get worse, but not too much worse. This is a comedic kids film, after all. Diego tries to lead the others into a spooky cave he claims is a shortcut. They resist at first, but an avalanche forces them in. After some visual comedy, they nearly lose the baby, and then they come across some rock art. Through heartbreaking animation, we relive with Manny the reason for his solitude, the slaughter of his mammoth wife and mammoth baby by human hunters. This happens 50.5 minutes in, or 67.3%. This is the low point. We see now that Manny was not always a loner. He has lost his group, but the thought of replacing them is too painful for him. We now understand why Manny reacted to the baby the way he did. He was unaccustomed to seeing humans as vulnerable, affectionate, or loving. And back at the midpoint, he connected with the baby. He explored the inner life of the enemy and found it matched his own. Manny and the others escape the cave, but are soon beset by erupting lava, presumably because some studio executive thought this stretch of the film was a bit too dull. We still need to close all the loops opened in the second act before we move to the third. Sid immediately bonded with the baby. Manny grew attached to it over time, but Diego has resisted. The baby is a pawn in his boss's revenge scheme, which is a convoluted way of saying food. Here at the end of Act 2, the baby takes faltering steps between the characters and is drawn towards Diego. For presumably the first time in his life, Diego is the recipient not of orders but of affection. He is wanted for who he is, not what he can do. This changes Diego, and he is now ready to come clean with the others about his ulterior motive. He warns his allies of the Macaron ambush that lies in wait. Sid and especially Manny flip out. Diego has betrayed the group, but he demonstrates that he has learned the value of intergroup bonds from being around the baby. He offers to help them turn the tables against their would-be attackers. In minute 62, 82.7% in, Manny agrees to trust Diego, and we enter the final exam. We've seen Sid's attachment, Manny's solitude, Diego's tyranny, and the baby's warm communalism. But which way is the best way to live? The final exam will show us, and the extent to which you respond emotionally to its events tells you how successful it is in showing you. The final exam begins with the group of misfits working together, working as a team, to outsmart the pride of Felix. But the tension ratchets up and the Felids are on the verge of bringing Manny down, when Diego leaps in to take the proverbial bullet. Manny dispatches Diego's erstwhile alpha, but Diego appears to be moribund. This emotional farewell hits at minute 67, 89.3% in. This is the reversal. Diego has learned the value of living in a group, and he has shown that he is willing to sacrifice himself for others, just like the baby's mother did. We now have the final information we needed to puzzle out the film's theme, as Diego urges the others to move on without him. Being with others is great, but that's not to say being with anyone is necessary, nor is being alone the perfect arrangement. It seems the best thing is to be prepared to move on and be alone if need be. And the best way to be in a group is not to slot obediently into a hierarchy, and nor is it to live a life without guidance or leadership, or to throw your life away for nothing and no one. The best way to be is to be in a group with leadership but warmth, to be alone when you need to, and to be with people you value in other times. You can take this in any number of ways. It's advice not to tolerate romantic relationships where you're not valued and respected. It's advice that the meaning provided by a supportive family is worth holding onto, but that you shouldn't blindly give yourself over to a family that doesn't respect you. But most of all, it's advice. And it's coming to you from a cartoon made 20 years ago. In the denouement, our herd of misfits completes their mission in a triumphant but mournful climax. Manny has closed the loop on his arc. His experience of losing a loving family was so awful that he wouldn't wish it on his own worst enemy, indeed on the same species, or at least genus, that inflicted it upon him. And because Diego learned the theme, we get him back too. The movie ends the way it began, with Scrat and his endless mission to sequester nutrients. I've always assumed that movies targeted at kids would have more stringent structures than those targeted at adults, and this movie proves me right so far. The spacings are basically textbook, and they provide a really clear lens through which to glimpse the film's message. Obviously, the film's visuals have aged, and as an adult I find some of the tomfoolery a little tiresome, but the incredible attention to character and story easily validate this film's popularity and the sequels it spawned. That focus on what it means to be part of a group, neither pride nor herd but something in between, is what makes Ice Age such great equipment for living. Thanks for watching this breakdown. If you found it insightful, please leave a thumbs up. If my ramblings have stoked an insight in you, I'd love to read it in the comments. And if you'd like to see more movie breakdowns, click subscribe and ring the bell icon to make sure you don't miss any future videos. Let me know if you'd like to see more animated features, and if so, which ones. Bye for now.